The following is a production of DallasCowboys.com and the Dallas Cowboys Football Club.
How about them Cowboys?
Yeah! Go Cowboys! This is Girls Talk, Boys Talk, presented by Jigsaw Dating, preferred dating partner of the Dallas Cowboys, and broadcasting live from Dallas Cowboys World Headquarters at the Star.
Well, good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to Girls Talk, Boys Talk, presented by Jigsaw, the preferred dating partner of the Dallas Cowboys. I'm Jess Navarez, joined alongside Aisha Morrison and Christy Scales. We are here at the beautiful Star in Frisco, a very hot day out at the practice field, which we'll get into a little bit later. But the Dallas Cowboys going to seize their opportunity as the Dallas Cowboys, Mike McCarthy rather, announced the 2023 theme of the season. Let's jump right into it. Carpe Omnia, everybody. If you have not heard yet, that is your Dallas Cowboys 2023 theme of the season. What does that mean? Seize everything. So Carpe Diem, a very common term. I feel like that one's a little bit more mainstream, if you will, Carpe Diem.
Yeah, thanks to Dead Poet Society.
There
Sure,
you go.
we all remember that. Carpe Diem, seize the day.
Carpe Diem.
But that's not enough.
No, it's
More
not
than
enough
the
to
day.
seize the day. You got to seize everything. Ladies, let's talk about this theme. I know we are very high on the theme. We were very high on the resiliency theme last season. Christy, what did you get out of Mike McCarthy making this announcement and picking this theme of Carpe Omnia?
Well, one of the things that was at the team meeting this morning, and so there's also a new big logo, and it's in the hallway as the players leave their locker room and walk to the practice field, so they see a picture of it. And we're going to talk about some of the symbolism involved in just a moment. But one of the things that McCarthy talked about was the fact that, and Jess is holding up a photo right now of,
see if you can see it.
the big board. So they walk under that each day several times. So he said that one of the props that he used, one of the visuals, was an empty picture frame, meaning make what you want. What are you going to put into that frame this season, not only individually as a player, but collectively as a team? And what did you think, Aisha? Does that visual work for you? And did you find that motivating, or talking to the players today, you think they're buying into this?
Oh, yeah. I mean, when you talk about seizing the moment, and we've heard these players, even Micah, talk about just like at the end of last season, after that 49ers game, how they were in the locker room, and you come to the realization that, you know, there might be changes. There's guys in this locker room we might not see anymore. And so when you're talking about seizing the moment, it's looking at this team, how it's been orchestrated, put together. Seizing this moment with how good this team on both sides of the ball is important. So I really feel like with the picture frame thing is putting in there, like they can envision. I think Micah talked about the manifesting and envisioning sometimes the plays that he sees the night before and sees himself making them. I think it's healthy, and it also allows these guys to put into what their future is. They have it's their moment. It's their moment. It's a reminder of that.
Yeah, and beyond the field too, right? That's something Brandon Cooks and the guys were talking about, that the theme from McCarthy was more than just on the football field, but off the football field as well. And I think Brandon Cooks put it very well when he said, it's football, it's family, it's knowing the why, not only for yourself, but of your teammate. They plan for their family, they have young kids. What is it? And so I thought that was very powerful.
I want to go back to your point about the picture frame. So it's going to be a frame outside of the team room, an empty frame. And in the press conference, I want to get this correct and how I say it. So Mike McCarthy said, quote, "A picture says 1,000 words. But the reality is an empty frame is everything because of all the possibilities and capabilities in what's in front of us. We're going to do every single thing, every single day we can possibly do for that frame to be part of the history and tradition of the Dallas Cowboys." So it's very symbolic of them filling up their cup and making their mark and putting that picture frame and taking it and putting it in the history books, really is what it is. What I really liked about it is talking to the guys in the locker room. The way Mike McCarthy announces this is it's not, I asked him too, you were right there, Christy, when I asked him, I said, "Does it ever get old? How do you do it?" And he said, "It's not some grand announcement. We just kind of have a talk and we talk about the why." And he said, he used to be a theme, I forget how he said it. He used to be a weekly theme kind of guy. And when we were all talking about it, he mentioned somebody asked him in the scrum, hey, did you ever use Carpe Diem before? Because that's a more well-known theme like we're talking about. And he said, I did once. He said back in 2010, week of the Super Bowl, he used to do weekly themes at, it was then Cowboys Stadium, now AT&T Stadium, when the Packers went to the Super Bowl, ended up winning. That was his theme back in 2010 was Carpe Diem, which was seize the moment. So talking to the guys in the locker room, they didn't know that little nugget. And so I told a couple of guys, just to put in perspective of how much this really means to Mike McCarthy to give you guys this theme and give this team this theme, they were very taken back. Yeah. I mean, there was a couple of guys that went, whoa, really? And I said, yeah, go ask him. He'll tell you Carpe Diem was the theme in 2010, the week of his Super Bowl win as the Packers head coach. So I think it's a really cool thing for all of them. I think they all really liked it. And Christy, there's some questions circulating on Twitter. And I knew you would dig to the bottom of this for us. Because there's a little warrior symbol that's on the mural outside the locker room, like you said, and then on the hoodies that were given to the guys.
And the backs of the shirts.
And the backs of the shirts.
Yeah.
What is this warrior that we're seeing everywhere? Mystery solved. All right, be our Nancy Drew for us, please,
Okay.
Christy.
It is a guru from India from the early 1600s. It's a Sikh, and it's the double swords. And so it's, and my apologies for possibly mispronouncing this, but it's Guru Hargobind. And he is the one that constructed the immortal throne. He became the Sikh guru at the age of 11, inheriting his father's pious legacy and the misery of the oppressed masses. And so he had this army of saint soldiers, and so they were fighting tyranny. They destroyed evil, and what was historic about it was, he welcomed soldiers from all castes, from society. But one of the players, and I don't want to say who because I don't know if Coach would want this person sharing information from their notebook from the team meeting, but once they said, yeah, he was 11 years old. He was this guru, and he was the first to use the double swords, but yeah, it's a guru from the early 1600s in India.
Wow.
But
see, Christy played Nancy Drew
there
today
you
in
go.
the locker room, and that's amazing.
And then for when we're saying Carpe Omnia, I'll tell you what Coach told the players, because as we were leaving the scrum, I was teasing Coach McCarthy. I'm like, man, got to break out my Latin phrase book and find out how to spell this. And he says Omnia. It's like Omni Hotel with an A. Omnia. That's how it's spelled. So if you're trying to tell this story to your friends and family members who are Cowboy fans, Carpe Omnia.
Speaking of friends and family, something that I learned in the locker room, Aisha and I were just talking about this, and I'll defer to you to talk about, this as well, Aisha, is within this announcement video that was showed to the players during their team meeting, not only was there the warrior and the explanation of what that symbolizes, but there was also pictures of friends and family, loved ones of the players within that announcement, giving them their why. And that goes back to really tying this with a bow. Aisha, I'm going to go to you for this question specifically. When you talked to some of the guys in the locker room about this announcement, what was the feel of it? How were they feeling about it? What did you really gather from them after really hearing this morning and they've had time to sit on it now?
There's a lot of emotion, and you can feel talking to the players, and also to just, there's a calmness about them, but there's also, you can still feel the intensity from them. And touching base with quite a few of them, some of them, their families being there at this game and their first game, and to start the game means a lot to them. But I can tell you, this game with your family and there's sacrifice in this game. There's sacrifice in this game. So I can empathize with a lot of them with being away from their families, the brutal, the physical part of it, the mental strain. Sometimes you do just need a reminder. Sometimes you do just need to see your why up there in this capacity, and then for everyone to see. I think it was healthy for everyone to see each other's why, each other's reasons why they're doing this and playing this game, because there's a lot of brutal parts about this game, and one of it is being separated from your family and the sacrifice that you make to do this. So I thought it was healthy, and again, like I said, I think it's very healthy to be reminded of that sometimes.
Well, with your military background and serving overseas, you have a better idea than those of us who've never served our country.
Yeah, I relate to it. I relate to a lot of, even talking to some of the players after training camp, being away for that 3 weeks, I guess you just don't think of it being a big deal, but for that, your family, your friends, your people who are back home waiting for you, it is a sacrifice. It's a sacrifice. And so I think it's just healthy for those guys to hone in on their reasons. And it just really ties back into Mike McCarthy talking about in OTAs, the purpose, the why. That has been a common thing this whole time. It's a reoccurring thing. And when you have a young roster, like there's some older gentlemen in this locker room, no offense, y'all, but then there are also two seasoned. I forgot. There's some seasoned gentlemen in this locker room, but this is one of the younger locker rooms. They're developing a lot of these guys. So you see some of these guys starting to have families and grow up and become men. Yeah, I think it's a healthy dynamic for this team.
I also think it is important to note that they are young, and these are like early 20s, guys. I mean, you think about what you were doing in your early 20s, being away from your friends and family, especially if you grew up close to them and living close to them, that's a really hard adjustment to do. And so when you hear these guys talking about this is my family, it genuinely is their family. They go to them for things outside of even the football field, life, their kids, their wives, everybody really connects. And I think this theme it fits this roster so perfectly. Yeah. Christy, I want to ask you this, because you've been covering this team for a while. You're seasoned in this, right?
33 years. Is that seasoned?
You're in your Damone Clark. You're in your Damone Clark year.
Oh, wow. Okay, that makes it sound better.
Yeah,
Thank you.
We'll say that.
Thank you.
So when we talked last year about the Cowboys roster and the potential that they had, I remember there was a time we were all walking and we said, Christy, have you felt the team be like it is right now? And this is right before the playoffs. I remember you said, no, it's been a while since the team has felt like this. Going into this year, what does the team feel like for you in terms of other teams you've covered during your tenure here with the Cowboys?
Got a great feeling about it. The additions that have been made. Hey, there's so much roster turnover every year, and it's not always young guys. It's guys like Stephon Gilmore and Brandon Cooks coming in, Chuma Edoga. We're going to talk about him a little later in regards to injuries along the offensive line. And Mike McCarthy mentioned it today in his press conference. 35% different, the roster right now from last year, turnover percentage, 35%. But yeah, there's great leadership with the guys that have come in, and the why thing, I want to share a story about that, if I may. Last week, early in the week, Michael Gelkin of the Dallas Morning News did the wonderful story on Wanye Thomas, the Cowboys safety, who was one of the stars of camp. And when Wanye was 4 years old, and he's the youngest of 5 children, he and his siblings and his mom basically had to live out of their car because the father had set the house on fire. And so obviously it shaped Wanye's, not only, even today, going back, looking at that, but the hero that his mom was to get the kids and the family through all of this. Well, that same afternoon that the story came out last week, I was walking out of the locker room and I saw Dan Quinn, defensive coordinator. I said, Dan, have you seen the story, Michael's story in the morning news about Wanye? He says, no. I said, it's about overcoming adversity. And he's like, can you forward it to me? And so I forwarded him the story, and he emailed right back and said, this is so great. Thank you. And then very inspiring. Then when I saw him the next day, I was like, man, that's really something what Wanye's family has overcome. He's like, yeah. And he says, I didn't know that particular part of the story, but thank you for sending it because now I know his why. Same thing. Yeah.
Come on.
Oh, that gave me chills.
I know, right?
Yeah. And there's and the part that you're saying about the young players, Tyron Smith is one of the old guys now, but when he was drafted in the first round out of USC, he didn't play his full 4 years. When he arrived here, he was 20 years old. Wow. His birthday is mid-December. He did not turn 21 years old until like 10 games into or 12 games into his rookie year. He could not legally buy a beer in the stadium where he played as a professional athlete until 3/4 of the way through the season. So these guys are babies when they arrive.
I also want to point out, and we'll take our first break after this, but I want to point out how important it is to have a coaching staff that cares about their players' why. Because you just mentioned Dan Quinn saying, well, now I know his why. Mike McCarthy, we just talked about Aisha, it being a reoccurring theme to why it's so important. And you're talking about just this story with Wanye. My brain's going back to DeMarcus Ware in his Hall of Fame speech when he talked about, his story with his uncle and how he was traumatized from that. And he used that football to really drain everything out. He was playing for a why. He had his why. But back then, it really wasn't as public, right? And I think a beautiful part of this coaching staff and this culture here within the building is that these players want to share their why because they feel comfortable enough to do it. And it's just, again, a healthy work environment for them.
Yeah, and when you say work environment, let's also credit the entire organization, the Jones family, and the staff. They do a wonderful job here, the coaching staff. But I'll give an example, again, pulling back the curtain, go behind the scenes. Earlier this week, the Dallas Cowboys Women's Association, so that's the wives and significant others of the players and coaches, they had their first meeting of the season. And Whitney Faulkner, Emily Robbins, Allie Chrisman, and Dallas Cowboys Community Relations helped facilitate that. But everyone understands what we were talking about earlier about the sacrifice that players are making for their families. But just like military, Aisha, it's the families that make the sacrifice so that the husbands, sons, can pursue their dream of playing in the NFL. And so I just wanted to point that out. There are weekly Bible studies that are not mandatory, but available, of course, for the Women's Association. And so there are all sorts of things that happen behind the scenes to facilitate that inclusive, what we would say, culture here with the Cowboys.
I love that. Christy, always having good insight. We're going to take our first break, but if you want to start texting us your questions at 817-290-3298, we would love to hear from you. We are talking all about the injury report from today's practice and what we saw at practice. Coming up after this break, this is Girls Talk Boys Talk, presented by Jigsaw, the preferred dating partner of the Dallas Cowboys.
We know that juicy, cheesy, grilled to perfection burger sounds amazing, but it does sound like something is missing. Pepsi, baby! The yin to this burger's yang. Burgers and Pepsi go together like burgers and Pepsi. This perfect blending of flavors makes every bite of lettuce, every sesame seed on the bun, and every sip of that crisp, refreshing, ice-cold cola a journey to Foodtopia. Burgers, better with Pepsi. That's what I like.
At Jigsaw Dating, we obviously want the Cowboys to bring that 6th ring home. But to be honest, we're more focused on finding the person who will put a ring on your finger. That's why we created a dating app that reveals your face through meaningful conversation, so you can date deeper. Because it's personality that matters the most, not looks. Join Jigsaw Dating today, dating partner of the Dallas Cowboys.
Back to Girls Talk Boys Talk, presented by Jigsaw, the preferred dating partner of the Dallas Cowboys. We're going to talk about today's injury report and what we saw at practice, but first, experience the feeling of game day every day at the Miller Lighthouse at the Star. Now open just steps away from the Tostitos Championship Plaza, the Miller Lighthouse features a cooler full of grab-and-go beverages and snacks, tailgate games, and a recharging lounge, of course, a Dallas Cowboys photo op, and even more than that. For more information, you can visit thestarinfrisco.com/Miller Lighthouse there. All right, ladies, let's go down this practice report. Real quick, please text us your questions if you have any, 817-290-3298. Practice report for the day. Nothing really surprising. Tyler Smith did not participate. Donovan Wilson did not participate. Sam Williams did not participate, and then Jordan Lewis, full participant. There is your Dallas Cowboys injury report for the day. However, let's talk about what we saw. Tyler Smith, didn't see him in the allotted time slot. Media was allowed to be out there. Donovan Wilson, we saw him with the resistance ropes once again, working with Sam Williams, also with the resistance ropes. Christy, is there anything else that you're hearing as far as Tyler, Dono, Sam? I mean, really anything to throw out there.
Well, we just need to
point.
be blunt. It's not good if Tyler Smith isn't practicing today. And Donovan Wilson, remember, his calf injury was the very first practice of training camp. So he's had zero work, really, other than the first few minutes of the first practice of training camp. But, yeah, when you're on the side with Britt Brown doing the resistance, those are look like the bungee cords, then on a Wednesday, then I'm not saying Tyler Smith is going to be ruled out, but it doesn't look good for Donovan Wilson. And turf toe is a thing that can be for a long time. So with Sam Williams, him not practicing, that doesn't look good either for Sunday night. But, Chuma Edoga is a guy who missed part of preseason and training camp with his own injury, but he's a fifth-year player. The Cowboys acquired him in free agency this year. He did start 2 games at guard for the Falcons last year. So if you're going to go with a veteran in place of Tyler Smith, if he's not ready for Sunday, then we may see Edoga not only making his Cowboy debut Sunday night, but possibly making it in the starting lineup in place of Smith.
Yeah, and the thing about these injuries that you're talking about, the turf toe, anything hamstring related, is I distinctly remember seeing plenty of times through different seasons, players having a hammy tweak, and it bothers them the whole season. So it's one of those things where this is a long season. It's a 17-game season, and that's not even including the playoffs. So I believe that they're definitely trying to be very precautionary about how they handle it, and also making the decision on it. Is it necessary? Is it necessary going up against this offense? Can we find different ways to work around it?
Yeah.
Now that defensive line, that
Dexter Lawrence,
that
and
interior,
Leonard Williams,
that interior is the Giants' strength defensively. So I do understand. I'm not going to sit up here and act like I'm not concerned, but I also will say it is a divisional game too. But I also will say that there seems to be some faith in what Chuma Edoga is possibly able to do there at that left guard spot.
But the only thing is Edoga, he got so much of his work in camp and off-season at tackle, because he's, let's be frank, coming into the season, he was probably slotted as your swing tackle.
Tracking that.
And so now he's, might be starting at guard.
So would you be more comfortable? So asking you then, saying how much work that Austin Richards actually did get at left guard in the preseason and left tackle, would you be more comfortable maybe even seeing him, or how do you feel about that?
They may both get a chance to play if Smith doesn't play, but honestly, that's something we'll be Nancy Drewing over the next couple of days to figure out whether it's Edoga or possibly Austin Richards. But see, Richards getting work, he may end up being your swing tackle.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So
I talked to him today in the locker room. I talked to Awesome. He's always really great to catch up with.
And so well spoken.
Such a nice just guy to talk to. He's very smart, and he's just very calm and confident. I did get to talk to him a little bit, kind of asked how he was doing, how he was adjusting. I haven't talked to him really since media day. That was the last time I got to catch up with him. And I asked him, how are you feeling? Because keep in mind, Austin Richards comes from Philadelphia area. So during media days, he was telling me he was really pumped for the Philadelphia game, right? So I said, coming from that area and possibly that fandom, I won't rat him out if he was or not. But I said, you have the appreciation for the NFC East division as a whole. And the one thing that Eagles and Cowboys have in common is, 2 things, I should say, the Commanders and the Giants. And when that game week is there, it's really the same feeling. And he said, oh, I'm pumped. I mean, you should have seen this guy. He was kind of sitting back, just talking to me, and then he got up, and he was really animated when he was talking about it. And I said, so would you feel confident if you had to get more in the rotation? He said, I've been ready.
Yeah.
So what I like about Awesome is his arms. He uses his arms very well. I would feel more confident with Awesome in the mix more than anything right now with any other option. And again, you're talking about the draft and develop mentality. You need those real life reps and opportunities to really get there and to establish. And Mike McCarthy's huge on that. So
that's me ripping off the Band-Aid.
If anything, there you go. You just do it. And if Tyler Smith is not available, you have to trust in your young guys. They've said that day in, day out. He's right there. He's waiting. So there we go. There's that. Any other things that we noticed at practice today? Anything else that really stood out to you ladies while you were out there, other than it being scorching hot?
Jordan Lewis. Seeing his movement, I really been just paying attention to how comfortable he looks breaking, planting, and just how fast he looks, and see if his speed has been hindered at all, and having the opportunity to see him go stride for stride and I told him, I was like, is this the return of Velcro? Because that's what they used to call him in college. When he was in Michigan, they called him Velcro. So
because he sticks to everybody.
Yeah, he's sticky in coverage, a hip pocket type of player, and it was just good to see him confident today, and this is one of the first opportunities I think that he's been a full participant. So that's what I was looking for him. I know it's going to be a ramp up to some degree, like as far as the snaps he gets in games and stuff. But to see him look comfortable today was something I was really looking for.
Christine, is there anything you noticed when you were out there?
Yeah, I think that was huge. I mean, Deron Bland is still your first team slot corner, but to have Jordan Lewis available, presumably, I mean, that, and what, it's like Terrence Steele, the work that they have done to come back from these injuries so relatively quickly and be ready for the regular season opener.
It's the commitment.
It really is. And we mentioned Britt Brown earlier. He's been with the Cowboys athletic training staff for 30 years, and director of rehabilitation is his fancy title now. But he's like a magician. Well, you know what I say that it's not magic. It's diligence. It's hard work. Not just by Britt, but certainly by the players, and a lot of dedication and patience, which is the hard part, right? You ask any of the guys, and they'll tell you that coming back from injury, the mental part, the emotional part is usually more difficult or as difficult as the physical part. But kudos to those guys for making themselves ready.
Absolutely, and we talk about that too, is when you're in a ramp-up phase, and I love that Mike McCarthy puts so much emphasis on this, it's not just about physically ramping up, right? It's important because you don't want to re-injure anything, especially when it's a soft tissue injury. That's a really tight rope to be walking on. But he talks about the mental aspect of it. And that's why you even go back to camp, you talk about Luke Schoonmaker, who before he could participate, he was doing mental reps there on the side while he was watching the actual play go through. He was doing the mental reps to get his mentals ready. And it's really interesting talking to him now in the locker room. I catch up with that room as much as I can. They're just we talked about this. They're such a fun room to go talk to. But talk to Schoon, kind of seeing where his mind is, and he feels ready. He said he feels good, feels ready. But I think it's so important, again, we are not trying to be homers when we talk about, this coaching staff and the things they're doing, but it's just a fact of it's so important to have a coaching staff that brings light to the mental health awareness within this team and the mental ability to bounce back from injuries, because I don't think a lot of people think of that aspect. They think, oh, he's a football player, he's just going to go back into it. But really, it's a mental fight to go back into the game more than physical at some point, right? When your body's ready is your mind, and a lot of these guys are really aware of that, and they help each other too when it comes down to that. Aisha, I wanted to ask you had really good locker room talks today. What are some of the good nuggets, as you would say, that you got out of the locker room today that you think is just good to put out there? Anything that you want to make sure to mention?
Well, one of my favorite interactions was being able to touch base with the linebacker core today, and just kind of talk to them briefly about this matchup and some of the things that Daniel Jones brings to the table. And one thing that he did, I mean, he had about 100 yards between the last two meetings. From a running standpoint, Brian Daboll, one thing that he's incorporated into this Giants offense is the RPO and the play action and just a lot of the misdirection and stuff, so the quarterback can, have that ability to get plays. And Daniel Jones in that first game, he made the Cowboys pay plenty of times with giving him grass and open field. He's tall, he's athletic, he's a lot faster than what he, is presumed to be. And that matchup to me is important because, like I said, there's plenty of times he will take advantage of, grass being in front of him. And talking to Damone Clark, it seems like they're very aware of that, and that's something that they want to improve on as as opposed to last year, because he was able to get them a couple times last year. So also talking to Leighton Vander Esch, he looks sprightly and fast and noticeably leaner, way leaner. And so I asked him, I said, did you change your regiment? Did you do anything different? He was like, yeah. And similar to Tank, how we talked to him, he's aware that he's aging in his career, and to have the wherewithal to say, okay, I have to change things, even though they might be different than what I've done 6-7 years to this point. He changed his diet, changed some of his regimen, and you can see his body being leaned out, and you can see how much faster he looks on the field. So I just think that linebacker core, especially the second level of the defense, is going to be important going into this game, because you have a quarterback that can escape and make you pay.
Yeah, I can't wait to see how Leighton Vander Esch is utilized now that we're in the regular season, having him line up, standing up off the edge and rushing off the edge, because we did see some of that in training camp, or, coming up, I call it mugging when you're over the A-gap, right? Looking for a pass rush and like over the center kind of thing. So, yeah, I think if he stays healthy, he's going to have a fantastic season.
He's also somebody that Micah was talking to the media today, kind of catching up. He was asked about the linebacker room, and Micah said that linebacker room falls under Leighton Vander Esch and all of the things that he does for that room. And Leighton, he's somebody that I talked to at camp, because he was noticeably leaner, and you could see him talking to Damone specifically at camp. Just after every snap, really, they would go and they'd convene, and they really are. And what I loved is, I think I mentioned this on the podcast when it had happened, but I stick by this because I think it's so important. When Sean Lee was here, took Leighton under his wing to give him advice and be that guy for him. And Sean had told him back then, you just do it for the next guy. And so Leighton really took that to heart. He said he met Damone, and Damone told me when he was going through his rehab, there wasn't a day that Leighton didn't go in there to check on him and talk to him and be there for him. So that way, now that they're on the field together, the time's finally come, they're both ready to get going. They already have that established chemistry. They know each other's nuances. They know their verbal, nonverbal cues. And I think the nonverbal cues are such an important part of this game that aren't talked about enough. I mean, we do it here on the podcast. You do it at work with people that you work with. For them on the field, it is a difference between making a play and not making a play. And those two, the connection that they have and the ability to communicate it is so beyond noticeable. I'm so excited for both of them.
Yeah, that 3-3 is going to have a big year.
Yep.
That 3-3, he seems like he's primed to have a really
had
good
a great
year.
camp.
Yeah,
He did.
He's flying around. You can tell he's confident. And to your point, Jess, he and Leighton took a lot of time this offseason to spend time with each other, to pour into each other. And it's the linebacker core, the starters specifically. I think you have some good guys out there.
Absolutely. Let's take our next break. Text us your questions at 817-290-3298. We would love to answer any questions you have. Coming up, we're going to give you a little bit of a game preview to Sunday's game. We're going to talk about how the Giants have to plan this game a little bit differently around what they're working with against the Dallas Cowboys. We'll be right back. This is Girls Talk, Boys Talk, presented by Jigsaw, the preferred dating partner of the Dallas Cowboys.
At Jigsaw Dating, we obviously want the Cowboys to bring that sixth ring home. But to be honest, we're more focused on finding the person who will put a ring on your finger. That's why we created a dating app that reveals your face through meaningful conversation, so you can date deeper. Because it's personality that matters the most, not looks. Join Jigsaw Dating today, dating partner of the Dallas Cowboys.
You know that sound anywhere. It's the crisp crunch of that first nacho chip. With its perfect cheese to sour cream ratio sitting atop a layer of delicious beans, it's a sip away from perfection. That's what we're looking for. Add a delicious, refreshing Pepsi and we've achieved absolute nacho nirvana. Because while you can pile those nachos high with every spicy, cheesy, savory topping, there's no topping a cool Pepsi finish. Nachos, better with Pepsi. That's what I like.
Welcome back to Girls Talk, Boys Talk, presented by Jigsaw, the preferred dating partner of the Dallas Cowboys. Text us your questions at 817-290-3298. We're going to talk a little bit of Sunday night's game, but first, a fan favorite, Market at the Star, presented by Fleestyle, will take place on Saturday, September 9th from 10 to 4 p.m. out on the Tostitos Championship Plaza. Come shop from 50-plus local makers offering art, fashion, decor, and more at this free outdoor market. Visit thestardistrict.com for more information. Okay, get those questions in. We're going to talk a little bit of Giants preview. We're really going to get heavy into that on the podcast tomorrow, so something to look forward to there as well. But Aisha, something that we wanted to talk about yesterday, we didn't get around to it, wanted to make sure it got the spotlight today.
Yeah.
You brought up a really solid point, and the way your mind just so effortlessly works to think of these football points is crazy. You're a football genius. But you talked about this being a lot of the guys' first games.
Yeah.
First game, right? So we talked about this. I wanted to make sure we talk about this because you named specific guys. Deron Bland, Damone Clark, a lot of guys. Talk about kind of where your mind went with that, what that means, and how that's going to be significant, not just for rookies, because we're not just talking rookies here. Mm-hmm. How is it significant for other guys, even that I didn't mention?
Yeah, it's his first game, because Deron Bland didn't come in until I want to say maybe it was week 2, where he just got thrust into the game, and then also too, Damone Clark is another guy. This is his first game of the season.
Jalen Tolbert,
another one, first game of the season, and it seems like a small thing. But the nerves that guys have, you've watched the games over the course of a Sunday, the first game of the year. Guys got to get their nerves out. You can see it sometimes, or you just see them firing on all cylinders. But also, too, touching base with them, a lot of their families are going to be there or are able to be present. And I just, I don't know. I honestly thought about it just because it's something that's significant that I think it is to them. It's their first game. It's a different feel. It's high intensity. I think it's a marker for them. And to your point, I think Christy mentioned that Mike McCarthy was saying just the preparation for the first game is different. Well, a first game of the season is different too. Christy, do you have any insight on just how different it feels for these players maybe the first time?
Yeah, I think the preparation has to do more with like the unscouted looks and like we were talking about yesterday, 35% coach surmises of what they're going to see on Sundays unscouted. They haven't prepared for it just because there are new wrinkles going into every season. Brandon Aubrey was asked about that, the Cowboys rookie kicker. And he says, first game, but I had a first game in MLS. I had a first game for USFL. So even though I'm a rookie, I have had to do this professionally before. Now, you could the people whose glasses are half empty instead of half full would say that was the USFL and that was MLS and this is Sunday Night Football, the most popular sport in America, America's team, and all of that. But I think there's something to it for a guy like Aubrey, who very serious-minded, steady Eddie, and has had professional experience before. So, but a guy like Jalen Tolbert, remember he was inactive. Mm-hmm. And you'd be surprised. Jalen told us this the other night, and so many players don't know this when they come into the league, that there are inactives in the NFL. Yeah. And he was told, you're going to be inactive. It's like, what is that? Yeah. And so, it was Dennis Houston who got the opportunity last year. A guy like Noah Brown, week 2, big game and taking advantage. So, but and the fact that it's Sunday night and a division opponent, it just gives it more juice.
I want to make sure to mention, because you're talking about Brandon Aubrey, and we have these awesome packets that Cowboys PR makes for us. But I wanted to mention this little nugget, if you will, about him. It says, if he makes a field goal, Aubrey will become the 9th Cowboys rookie to make a field goal in his NFL debut. The last Cowboys rookie kicker to make a field goal in his last NFL debut was none other than Dan Bailey, who also made it at MetLife Stadium while playing the New York Jets, though. on 9/11/11. So, little fun fact there.
What I remember about that game, it was the 10-year anniversary of 9/11, and so we have the opener there, and there was so much to commemorate the 10-year anniversary from, it had just happened across the river, World Trade Center 10 years earlier, but Robert De Niro was there to do a reading, Billy Crystal, oh my gosh, the most iconic of New York celebrities were there, and it was very solemn, before the game and stuff like that. So that game totally stands out in my mind.
Sticks out in your mind. Something that we wanted to talk about today too was, Christy, I'm going to defer back to you, and Aisha, you can bounce off of that too, is what the defensive staff is expecting from the Giants and other opponents' offenses in terms of the plan of attack. What did you get out of that today?
Yeah, it was interesting to say that they're expecting run. Saquon Barkley, right? The two of the Pro Bowlers on off, with the left tackle and Saquon Barkley having his career year last year. But it's the fact that unscouted looks, but basically you're going off reputation. That's what the staff is saying. So the reputation for the Cowboys defense, what were they best at last year? Pass rush and taking the ball away. So if you're an offense, you're going to rely on the run game to take the pressure off with that pass rush, but also do a lot of play action passes. What is a play action pass? That's where you see the quarterback pretend to hand the ball, faking the handoff, keeping it, and then throwing the ball. So the Cowboys think they're going to get a heavy run and a lot of play action. Why is play action important? What are they trying to do when they fake that handoff? It's just that hesitation, just that little bit of a not only with the pass rushers of a defensive end or a defensive tackle is coming in. Did he hand the ball off or not? But also in coverage, those linebackers are looking, is it a handoff or not? And so they have to react as if the ball is being handed off. And then as soon as they see that the quarterback's keeping it, then you got to make sure that you're in your drop and have your coverage assignments. So that's the reason why play action can be important. But I thought that was really interesting. So they're going to rely on Saquon Barkley, but the play action part I thought was pretty cool.
Oh yeah, and then when you look at the Cowboys secondary, especially through the year last year, the number 2 corner was somebody to pick on. But that's a position that's been shored up with a Stephon Gilmore. So then you also say to yourself, okay, yeah, play action might work, it might be great, but do I want to throw, I think that Micah said it today. It's like teams are going to have to face the music. They're going to have to face the music of the fact that, hey, maybe teams going into games are just going to try to attack play action and attack the front seven, because I don't know how much they're going to be wanting to just throw the ball all over the field with that secondary being improved the way that it is. Got a healthy Malik Hooker back there too. So I think the players are aware that teams are going to try to run against them. I will say I was incredibly encouraged by what we've seen in camp from the run defense, especially the interior with Hankins being there. But then also, too, when you look at the 49ers game, when you go back, obviously I know it's a whole new year, but you were looking for those improvements from the run game. They were dominant against the run with, Christian McCaffrey looked like he wants to go home a couple times. Let's just keep it real. So if they keep that same intensity and that same style going into this year, I think they found things to improve upon in the run defense. It's going to be difficult to score on this defense. And so I think a lot of that is just seeing how people want to try to attack them. But I think it's going to be a lot more difficult than what people think, because you got some sideline to sideline guys and some real speed on that defensive line to kind of contain and keep things at bay.
Absolutely. And we're going to get into all of our key matchups kind of more in detail tomorrow. So very exciting stuff. I know Aisha's going to watch some film tonight. I know we're going to do some studying, some digging on the Giant side of things. We're going to have some insight there for tomorrow's episode as well. But real quick, ladies, before we wrap up the show, to give people a little, teaser of something you're looking forward to really dissecting in this game, what is that? And we'll talk about it tomorrow, but what is an aspect of the Cowboys game? Maybe it's from their reputation or just something that was kind of a loose end at the end of the season? What is something you want to dissect a little bit more into that tomorrow?
Yeah, improving the run defense. They did finish strong against McCaffrey, but that's a thing there. And then I'm really interested in, and we'll talk about this a lot tomorrow, but how the Giants plan to utilize Darren Waller.
Yeah.
Cowboys offense, I can't wait to see Brandon Cooks.
Yeah.
I just can't wait. And then how are they going to utilize Deuce Vaughn? Because he's going to get some touches.
Mine is just, I think I mentioned it yesterday, tempo, tendencies, how they get Dak into a rhythm. Just the difference is I'm going to be dissecting the differences in how the offense is run under Mike McCarthy and just how they like to set the tone and what that looks like. And so that's something I'm extremely excited about seeing this year.
Beautiful. I'm excited to see how the tight ends get more involved, whether it be in the pass game or the block game. I think blocking is going to be a huge asset of this tight end group. Big group of guys. I mean, I forget how tall they are when they're not sitting in their locker and they stand up.
They're still taller than Jess when they are sitting at their locker.
They still are. They're huge humans. But overall, I'm excited to see how they're utilized more within this Mike McCarthy playbook and kind of what that looks like. So
you made a good point. I wanted to say Jess made a good point as we were kind of looking at some of the statistics from last year, and this is something that's carried over from even when Jarwin and Schultz, where the usage of the tight ends against the Giants takes an uptick. I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's how they play defense. If that is I'll go look tonight and see if that is like a weak point maybe in their defense, because you can see in the numbers that Peyton Hendershot had one of his best games against him. Dalton Schultz had one. It's like there's something there that I'm gonna go tackle that just brought to my attention that I think matters. Might see these tight ends used a little bit more than what we initially thought on this game.
Yeah, and they've got change personnel-wise. The Giants do at safety, losing Julian Love, who was so good for them.
Adoree Jackson coming down in the slot.
Coming down, and then they got a Karake now at linebacker. So this isn't going to be same old Giants that we've seen the last few years.
And not to mention that they broke their dry streak of not making the playoffs. And guess where they ended up last year. So they're not an opponent to count out by any means. I think it's going to be a really great game. We're going to get more into details of it tomorrow. All things Dallas Cowboys, New York Giants, Sunday Night Football. We're breaking it all down for you on Girls Talk, Boys Talk tomorrow. But for today, that is all the time we have. Ladies, I love doing this with y'all. Y'all know that. We love all of you guys. The nice comments, the not nice comments, we love them all, so keep them coming. We're going to open the text line tomorrow, so make sure to stay on alert for that. Text us all your questions, shoot us messages, whatever, with questions. Until then, guys, have a great rest of your day. For Christy Scales, Aisha Morris, and Jess Navarez, we'll be back here tomorrow with more Girls Talk, Boys Talk, presented by Jigsaw, the preferred dating partner of the Dallas Cowboys. Go be fantastic today, and Carpe Omnia.
This has been a production of DallasCowboys.com and the Dallas Cowboys Football Club.
How about this, Cowboys? Yeah!